A tropical disturbance is moving through our area right now, with more impacts expected down the road. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. Great to see you on a Wednesday. Hope you are doing well. Coming up in this video, the newest information on our tropical disturbance. It's over portions of the Lesser and Greater Antilles. Right now, we'll talk about the impacts it's bringing. We'll talk about how this is going to play out and how this might be a disturbance we'll be tracking for a long time to come. You know, I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments section below where you're viewing from, what the weather has been like. For some of you, it's been a lot more active for today. Of course, if you have a specific question about the forecast, you can drop it in the comments section below as well. Okay, so let us take a look at what's going on this Wednesday afternoon with our disturbance. It's extremely easy to see that this has really begun to ramp up in intensity. It has overcome very quickly the Saharan dust layer. It's got its own moisture field. Showers and storms are beginning to develop. Now look, it is still an elongated, disorganized tropical wave, but it is beginning to get stronger, and this is kind of the first signs of it trying to gather up and become better organized as we get into Thursday, Friday, and the weekend. At the hour right now, it's bringing some heavy rain and has done so for a majority of the day to places like Anguilla, St. Bartholomew, St. Martin and Saba, St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, Antigua, Barbuda, Guadeloupe, areas off towards the west and to the south. But you can clearly see here, again, all of the lightning strikes, some pretty gusty winds as well. As a matter of fact, what do you say I throw on those surface winds for you? You'll see the temperatures come on first here momentarily, then the wind gusts will be here. And we've had some winds 25, 30 plus miles an hour. You can see that there, St. Martin, St. Bartholomew, just good tropical downpours. Easily 25 to 50 millimeters of rain, 1 to 2 inches, locally higher amounts. We follow this south towards Guadeloupe, still some good rain in Dominica. It's a little bit more scattered down towards Martinique. When I throw on the visible satellite imagery here, you'll see that we have some pockets of heavier rain. And as a matter of fact, right over Barbados, look, I know it doesn't look like much, but over Barbados, we had some really heavy rain for today. As a matter of fact, Barbados has a flash flood warning. They've had some 2 to 3 inches or 50 to 75 millimeters of rain over portions of the island. And that's what we're just going to see. Now, in general, sorry going that far out, but in general, the farther south that we go, the rain is more isolated. But still, I mean, you can see what's happening in Trinidad for today, right over Port of Spain. Look at that significant thunderstorm. Let me get back over here to the enhanced satellite imagery. It's very clear to see. So we've had pockets of even rich tropical moisture far south in the Lesser Antilles. Trinidad, Tobago, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines have been a lot drier. Barbados had that heavier rain. Again, St. Lucia, not as much. Martinique, a few storms there. And then you get into the more solid activity today, Dominica North, all the way through the rest of the Leeward Islands. It's been raining pretty heavy through most of the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands, St. Thomas, St. Croix, St. John, Virgin Gorda, Tortola there in Roadtown. It's a wet afternoon here in Puerto Rico. You can see the wind gusts, again, 20, 25 from time to time. What do you say we take a live look at the radar here out of Puerto Rico? So let's bring that on here real quickly. Let's see here. Let me throw that data off. Bring on the radar. Give me just 1 second here, guys. There we go. Hopefully this will pop on momentarily. Let's see here. There it is. All right, just took 1 second. A lot of data. This is the live radar here out of southeast Puerto Rico. We can clearly see a huge field of showers and storms. Still very disorganized, but there's more lightning with it right now. This has just become much better organized in the past 24 hours. Obviously, the movement with this is going to continue to be in a west-northwest fashion. So I'll throw a loop on. It's only going to be a half-hour loop, but you get the idea of the rain that will continue to move through the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands. Just significant downpours. There'll be some lightning. There'll be some 20 to 25 mile-an-hour winds. Is it going to be anything more than that? No. Okay, again, we don't have a closed center of circulation. We don't even have an invest area yet, but this is just a wet, stormy, sloppy forecast here with some decent wind gusts from time to time. 2 to 3 inches of rain in a lot of spots that could lead to some localized, fairly quick flooding. Nice little storm here just south and west of San Juan at the hour. Moving off towards the south and to the west, we have some rain over the western sides of Puerto Rico as well. A lot of showers offshore, and some of that's beginning to spiral back into portions of eastern Dominican Republic towards the Punta Cana areas as well. So again, that's the radar out of Puerto Rico. Let's go back over to our satellite imagery for us here. Let's pop that on for us real quick. There we go. And again, we'll just follow this up the road, moving to the north and to the west. So it's beginning to impact the Dominican Republic. It's beginning to impact the Turks and the Caicos. But for the most part today, it's been Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and the Lesser Antilles. Let's take a look at the moisture field. Remember, we were fighting that dry air yesterday, all that red, all that Saharan dust. It's gone by the wayside, guys. Remember, sea surface temperatures are out of control warm. The wind shear is very, very little. So even though this is disorganized, I expect, and the Hurricane Center fully expects, this continue to slowly develop as it moves to the west-northwest, which is why we have this area in orange as the development region. Again, it is not expected to become a tropical depression over the next, let's say, 36 to 48 hours. But as it gets towards the Bahamas, we have that opportunity. Now, we're going to talk a lot more about what the models are showing coming up, because we still don't have a lot of full confidence in what's going to be happening with this system. But in the here and the now, we know that it's really getting better organized. It's bringing some good showers and storms to those areas. Before we get into the remainder of the forecast with this disturbance, obviously I want to mention what's happening across the rest of our region. A few showers and storms developing over portions of Jamaica at the hour. A lot of you have commented just how hot it has been, and I'll throw on those feels like temperatures again for today. And if you're not getting the storms, you're not getting any relief. Feels like temperature in Kingston, 110. That's 43.3 degrees Celsius. It's been dry in Grand Cayman and Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Maybe a brief shower, but nothing more than that. Storms are more widespread through Cuba again for today, and Cuba will be influenced by this disturbance. We're going to get more storms to develop there. It's actually been relatively quiet through most of the Bahamas for today. We've had a few spotty showers develop. There's been more storms north of Walker's Key at the hour for us here, but the central and the southeast side of the Bahamas, even the Turks and Caicos, are relatively dry. You can see those feels like temperatures well above 100 in most spots there in Fahrenheit. And again, a couple of active storms through portions of the Dominican Republic, mainly on the east side. It's going to get wetter tonight and then overnight and then throughout the day on Thursday for all of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Few storms there just to the southeast of Santo Domingo at the hour. Already mentioned again, kind of spottier showers when you get down towards the Windward Islands, but just like portions of Trinidad and Barbados, there have been pockets of very heavy rain. Hot and dry in Nueva Esparta. Hot and dry right now for our friends in the ABC Islands. Maybe a brief shower over Bonaire at best. You can see their temperature drop just a little bit there. And again, back over to the west, we have some very active weather again for Nicaragua and Honduras, especially along the coastline. This is a flood threat here. Very heavy rain in these areas. It is pushing inland, but the heftiest rain has once again been along the Caribbean coastline. This does extend back through portions of Costa Rica and Panama, but mainly up towards Nicaragua and Honduras. It's been quieter today in Guatemala and Belize. Some storms are developing at the hour, mainly inland. You can again see how hot it has been. San Ignacio up to 108 for a feels like temperature. That's lower 40 Celsius. And it's been a relatively dry forecast through portions of the Yucatan as well. Just a few inland storms, but Cancun and Cozumel have been relatively dry. So again, this is what it looks like at the hour with this disturbance. Okay, friends, as we get into the forecast, again, I appreciate you guys hitting that like button. Just a quick, simple payback really helps me out here, helps out the channel. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't clicked the subscribe button yet, you want these daily forecasts across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, and of course, the in-depth tropical updates as well. Please share this with your family and friends. And again, thank you for finding ways to support me here at Meteo Mundo. Membership, super thanks, and you can find some other ways in the description below. So now we're going to get into the forecast of this disturbance. There are some tropical systems that show their cards very quickly, okay? It's very clear to see the track, where it's going, how it's going to develop. Beryl is an example of a storm where the track was pretty much spot on from the beginning. This is not one of those systems, friends. I have no problem whatsoever telling you what I know, what I think I know, and what I don't know about this, okay? And there's got a lot of details that still have to play out. And when we go over the model data today, you'll see why there's going to be such a spread in thinking with this. What I do know in the short term is we've had some very heavy rain through portions of the Lesser Antilles, the Virgin Islands, and moving into Puerto Rico. We could see heavy rain and a potential flood threat for the Dominican Republic, Haiti, the Turks of the Caicos, and portions of the Bahamas over the next 48 to 72 hours, okay? Not going to have direct impacts in Jamaica, as this will probably track north and west. But beyond that, it truly is a waiting to see how this is going to evolve. So let's get into the models. We'll start off with the European model, okay? The European model was the one that was holding on to its solution, tracking it up the Bahamas and then off the United States East Coast. This latest model run on this Wednesday is not the same. It now tracks it up the west coast of Florida, slows it down, and then eventually moves it up the United States East Coast. But I want you to notice the time frame that we're talking about here. I'm going to let it run one more time. Still broad, still sloppy over the greater Antilles, no area of low pressure over the weekend. Friends, it is not now on the deterministic model until Tuesday or Wednesday that we get an area of low pressure to form, drift over Florida, and then strengthen as it moves up the Gulf Stream in the U.S. East Coast, okay? Slowed down significantly on the European model with development. So just kind of sluggishly moving along here over the next several days, but it's farther west. That's the deterministic model, okay? Now we have our ensemble plots. These are the 51 members of the European model. They were very tightly clustered over the Bahamas, east of Florida, up the United States East Coast the last several days. You notice on this newest ensemble model run, they're much more widespread. More models are now off to the east side of the Gulf of Mexico. And the other big story is the much slower development. Again, now Friday, Saturday, 1 member, 2 members on Sunday. Now we get into Monday, Tuesday. Now we start to see these wrap up. Some of them are strong. Tropical storms, even some hurricanes on the European ensemble member. But we're talking about down the road, a week from now, or even longer. So if this plays out, and this disturbance sits over some part of the United States Southeast, now the flood threat becomes much more elevated before this even tries to wrap up and becomes a tropical depression or storm or even a hurricane, okay? But again, now we have a much more diverse solution on the European model. We don't want to see that. I don't want to see that because I was really holding on to the fact that over the last several days, the European model was more clustered here. Now, there are still more ensemble members in this area, but it's just much more dispersed overall. And the timing has really slowed down. Again, we don't even have really any development until Sunday, but now it's more like Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. So we're gonna have a long time to look at this. Here's the GFS model. Getting a preview because this is in the middle portion of this run, but now you notice that the deterministic model run of the GFS and the European model are now closer together. The GFS takes it into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. It does a very squirrely thing near the Big Bend, sits over the western side of Florida for 3 or 4 days before actually moving back north and west. Again, if anything like this ends up becoming true, it's a major flood threat for portions of the southeast United States and especially Florida, okay? Any system like this, any tropical system that would sit in one area for 3 or 4 days is going to cause a lot of problems. Again, I don't have a lot of weight in the GFS, but we have to start thinking about it more now, especially because the European deterministic is up the west coast. Hopefully, if nothing else, it's more progressive than this, right? Meaning that the forward speed, it has more motion, has more movement, doesn't sit over one area for very long. And again, for the GFS, it's really not until Wednesday that we get a true deepening area of low pressure, which becomes stronger, and this one pulls west-northwest. Here's the ensemble members, okay? The 51 ensemble members of the GFS. Let's take a look at those. There is nothing through the weekend here. This is Monday. We have 1 member. Let's get into Tuesday and Wednesday. Now we finally start to see some on Wednesday developing. Not nearly as many members make this an actual tropical storm or even more, but the ones that do make them stronger. So again, on the GFS, still not as bullish on development as the European model, but there's a big dispersal in potential tracks on the GFS. Yes, some of them coming up the United States East Coast, others staying in the Gulf of Mexico. So I wish we had better consistency with these models, but we just simply don't, which is why it's going to be a watch and wait scenario, friends. Again, we don't even have an invest yet, okay? Once we get an invest, we'll start to see the tropical models like the HWRF and the HMON begin to run, and maybe we start to kind of pick up on a better solution. I can show you here the GFS model. So let's take a look at that. I do have it nice and looped up. Let me drop off the orange area. So again, this is going to be the reflectivity or the rain on the GFS model that I just showed you. So let's see how this plays out on the GFS. We'll just kind of take it nice and slow and stair step it here, okay? Let me just do one other thing real quick. Just drop off that tag. Perfect. Okay, so let's break this down. GFS model doesn't have a lot of rain right now as much as what the system is showing. So it's already behind a little bit, okay? Notice the heavy rain moving through Hispaniola and Cuba. We're gonna get bursts of rain in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. It's just that the direct impacts aren't gonna be felt as much there. Now again, the GFS model is farther west, so there would be more rain for Jamaica and the Cayman Islands and the western side of Cuba as this moves up the west coast of Florida. Okay, now we get into the weekend, right? Saturday, Sunday, here's Sunday, and it just sits, and it sits, and it sits, and heavy rain forms over Florida, and it doesn't do much. It's not developing because the center is over land. It's just kind of brushing the coastline. What is this? We're 5 days here in a row, 4th through the 8th, and then eventually it tries to pull north and west, right? Let's look at it from this point right here. Watch this. This is 5 days of the GFS model just situated over Florida, and then eventually to the west-northwest. That would be an extreme rainmaker for Florida, and even portions of the Bahamas, right? Even portions of the Bahamas could situate here and stay with some very heavy rain. If I go back to the 3rd, again, south winds would be feeding into this, kind of spiraling in, and we could have some pretty heavy rainfall through portions of the Bahamas as well. But obviously Florida would have the bulk of this. Let's take a look at the winds associated with this as well. So these are the surface winds. It'll take just a second to load up. And again, guys, if you haven't hit the like button, I'd really appreciate that. If you guys want this information to keep flowing, as someone mentioned in a video or two before, again, thank you for supporting us. We need to grow. We've been growing very, very nicely this hurricane season, but we really need to keep growing here at Meteo Mundo, and I appreciate that support. It really helps us out. Liking and subscribing. Okay, here we go. GFS model just starting to wrap up here now on the 5th. Let's take a look at these winds, wind speeds. And if for some reason, whenever I hit this here, it likes to jump time. So again, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, more than likely still too broad, but there's a possibility that just off the coastline here, we could have a depression. These are sustained winds, by the way. These are not gusts. So we're getting into that depression strength. But just notice as I stair step this, now it comes inland, it loses its intensity, it kind of drifts back down towards Tampa Bay. Right here, it's a little bit stronger. Now we're up to 40. Maybe we have a tropical storm. Maybe we have Debbie just off the coast. Now again, you start to see these oranges. Now we start to see a stronger tropical storm. But again, I don't want to put a lot of weight in just this one run. Obviously, and apologize about that, obviously the European model as far as track has come closer to the GFS. But remember, the European model then pulls it east across Florida and up the US East Coast, okay? But just showing you again what could be happening here. Certainly, both models have slowed this system down. I have a bad feeling we're going to be talking about whatever this becomes well into the end of next week. And that could be a problem, especially with some very heavy rainfall as well. show you the vorticity while we have a second. You guys know I love to show you this product. It's spin in the atmosphere. It's not at the surface, but it is, again, a stronger system. Remember I showed you this yesterday as well, right? We didn't have that on the GFS model. Well, now we do, and we can see exactly where it's tracking. Right over Cuba, Straits of Florida, up the West Coast, stalls over the Big Bend, back down towards Crystal River, my hometown, Tampa, and then back north and west and into portions of Alabama and Mississippi. Again, just one model run of the GFS, but the GFS has been more of a Gulf of Mexico scenario over the last 3-4 days, where the European model has been more Western Atlantic and up the United States East Coast. But a stronger signal for a deeper storm on the GFS model, deterministic today, and that's what you're seeing. Again, it's that one rather than the ensembles where we look at. And again, what ensemble members do, by the way, guys, is some of the initial conditions are estimated on these models. And so because they're estimated, the ensembles are going to pick different estimates and run from there. Because if you start with garbage in on a model, you're going to get garbage out. So they want to have different initial conditions to maybe hit on what's truly happening. That's what ensemble members do. So let's kind of stair step this and broad brush this up, guys. Again, no problem saying that overall this is a low confidence forecast, because there's so much that still has to play out. The development could be very, very slow. More than likely, the models are leaning towards the Eastern Gulf or the far Western Atlantic. Now, I have a much higher confidence on that we're going to see some heavy rain for the Turks and Caicos, Cuba, Bahamas, and at least South Florida. And depending on how this plays out, it could be much more Florida as well. So that means the flood threat could be very high if this disturbance stalls, slows, just doesn't have a lot of forward speed in general. Obviously, it's going to come along with some higher surf and sea conditions as well. And again, it's going to be area dependent. We may not have significant wave heights coming along for the ride, but if this situates, as you can see, up the west coast of Florida, that's where we could see some of those higher waves, maybe 8 to 10 feet in a couple of spots. If this goes more towards the Bahamas, that's a possibility there, okay? But again, a lot of this is, late weekend or even early into next week. Again, this is Tuesday, Wednesday before those wave heights really come up. For the remainder of our area, the easterlies continue. Pretty significant as well. We'll have our trade winds, 15 to 20 knots, seas running 4, 5, 6 feet. So we're going to get to the forecast for everyone else, but there are other waves to keep an eye on. Not as concerned with this next one here, but there's a stronger wave emerging off the West African coast, okay? And there are signs that one of these next couple of waves could also develop. Remember, we're getting into August now, friends, and the Saharan dust is beginning to disperse. If you notice, here's your dry air, central and western sides, but there is not any dry air coming with this next tropical wave. So down the road, certainly another one we'll have to probably watch out for here. August, all signs point to being a lot more active again. Let's get back over to our forecast. And we're going to take a look at the rainfall, and I've got your island by island rainfall forecast. We always do that here at Meteo Mundo as well. So let's break this down, loop this up over the next several days. Rain will still persist, especially in the Leeward Islands, this evening, overnight, through portions of our Thursday. We'll begin a drying trend late tomorrow and into Friday and Saturday for Anguilla, Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, Dominica, Martinique, South. Scattered showers, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago. Not completely dry, but this axis of tropical moisture with this disturbance is moving off towards the west. Very heavy rain is likely for the U.S. and British Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico tonight, throughout the day tomorrow, beginning to improve on Friday. As we go farther west, we'll start to see these impacts deeper into tomorrow and then lingering more into Friday and Saturday. So Santo Domingo and Port-au-Prince and Lacaille, places like that, could see some very heavy rainfall tomorrow and then through portions of Friday. Notice this spirals into Cuba. We're going to get heavier rainfall potential for Jamaica starting Friday and maybe even into Saturday. Again, maybe not as persistent of rain for Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, but still some good downpours, hopefully help out the heat if nothing else. The rain will be more persistent in the Turks and the Caicos the next couple of days, through the southeast Bahamas, and again, eventually into the central Bahamas as well. Now, if this does run up the west coast of Florida, we may not get as much heavy rain for the northwest side of the Bahamas, but that is one of those yet to be determined things. If this does track like the European model had it, we would have more heavy rain for Nassau and Freeport. But notice that the Keys in South Florida, kind of regardless, they're going to get pockets of very heavy rain to go along with it. Some of this will spiral into the Yucatan. We still have a lot of rich moisture in the Southwest Caribbean. So outside of this, we're going to still spiral in a lot of rain for Panama and Costa Rica and Nicaragua and Honduras. It'll be a little bit more spotty for Belize City and Cancun and Cozumel. Broad perspective, again, we'll start to dry out here late tomorrow through our Friday, and then that wet weather just tracks west-northwest with that disturbance. Heavy rain, some isolated flash flooding comes along for the ride. So again, island by island rain chance. The areas in the days that I've highlighted in yellow are the more direct impacts from that disturbance. So the northwest Bahamas could start to see more direct impacts on Saturday if it's a little bit farther east track. Central and the southeast Bahamas should have more direct impacts Friday and Saturday, regardless, because I think we're close enough here to this disturbance. We're going to have these direct impacts. Again, heavy rain, some gusty winds, and we'll see if this does wrap up into a depression by then. But a lot of the models aren't even saying that through the weekend ahead. Turks and the Caicos, more direct impacts tomorrow, Friday, more dry, more isolated on Saturday. Cuba stays really wet with just more direct impacts Friday, Saturday. Cayman Islands rain chances increase as well. Belize City's rain chances are decent but not exceptionally high. Cancun and Cozumel about a 30 to 40% chance. Jamaica's chances, 40% tomorrow, up to a 60% chance Friday, Saturday. Dominican Republic, very wet starting later tonight throughout tomorrow, most of Friday, beginning to relax a little bit on Saturday. Puerto Rico, very wet for tomorrow. Same thing for our friends in the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, 70, 80% chance at least, 50% chance on Friday, 40% chance on Saturday. Bermuda, relatively dry, just a few isolated showers over the next 3 days. Anguilla, St. Kitts and Nevis, still high rain chances tomorrow, still some breezy conditions, but seas will begin to relax a bit, and then we're drier to more scattered showers Friday, Saturday. Antigua Barbuda, 60% chance tomorrow, 40% chance on Friday, lower Saturday, and that's the general trend for the Lesser Antilles. Montserrat, Guadeloupe, Dominica, 50% chance tomorrow, falling back down to just a 20, 30% chance on Saturday. St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. Again, could there be pockets of heavy rain? Absolutely. Just not going to be as widespread. Barbados, again, good rain in the area today. Let me know if you live there. A lot of you do. And then what you saw for today, but we had some heavy rain across the island. 30% chance the next few days. Grenada, the same situation. Trinidad, Port of Spain, good heavy rain there. Could have been some good flooding. Let me know. 30% chance the next few days, but again, pockets of heavy rain possible. Suriname and Guyana, decent rain chances. Still relatively dry for Nueva Esparta and the ABC Islands. European rain chance or rain totals over the next 7 days. Obviously now, because the deterministic model is farther west, now we have the heaviest rain along the west coast of Florida. And again, that's an even more progressive model than the GFS. And now we're eking towards the 8 to 10 inch range. Hopefully all offshore, but it'll be close, okay? Still some heavy rain possible for the Bahamas, and you can kind of see that track there. Heavy rain continues for portions of Central America, especially down towards Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. And some heavier rain, again, through portions of the Lesser Antilles, but just not as widespread. Now we're moving to kind of everything towards the west-northwest. And again, this is in inches. It's an easy conversion to millimeters. 1 inch is 25 millimeters, so 4 inches is 100 millimeters. And along this track, I think 2 to 3 inches or 50 to 75 millimeters is very plausible, with locally potentially much higher rainfall totals, depending on if this thing slows down. Friends, you know you can find me across all social media here. Let me get myself off camera so you can see our handles on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. You want to send me a picture or video? It's mymeteomundo@gmail.com. Again, I appreciate you guys liking and subscribing. If you have a specific question about the forecast, just drop it in the comment section below. You know I'll keep you updated. I'll have all the newest information tomorrow, so look for that. Until then, friends, you take care. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, early Thursday, and I will see you soon right here at Meteo Mundo.